Good day, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. Today, the topic we'll be looking at is language acquisition and the way our panelists would have acquired language from a child and from an infant. So, today, the first question I would like to ask our panelists is what was some of your first words growing up? Rennie?
So, according to my mother, my first word would have been dada. And her story is she used to call my dad Daddy Robert. But as a baby, I can't say Daddy or Robert. So my way of addressing him was Dada. What about you, Sadia?
Well, similarly to you, my first word was dada as well. And I think it's because my mom was a stay-at-home mom and she would always talk about my dada, when dada comes home, like something always referring to dada. So I guess that stuck with me and hearing it all the time, that ended up being my first word. Zareen, what about you?
Well, I actually have a similar experience because my first words were dada. And what mommy said to me was that she would actually tell me, don't say dada, say mama. No, not dada, mama. And my daddy wasn't living with us, so she would often refer to my father as dada. So she would say things like, okay, dada is coming for you, dada bought you this. And I guess eventually, because I kept on hearing the words dada, dada, those were my first words.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because you all first word was dada, and my first word was pa because that was the name that they referred to my father as, and so that was the word that I would have been socialized to learn because in our house everybody always called him pa, 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 pa is everything. So I guess my first word was pa, but my grandfather we referred to him as dada, so I would have learned dada eventually, but I guess pa would have been one of my first words.
Yeah.
So I guess would you say that your parents were actively teaching you language, Sandia?
Well, they would often converse with me as if I were a normal teenager, I guess. But in terms of like reading to me or putting on educational shows on your iPad or anything like that, not really. But I think from the interaction, because I also live in an extended family, and there was always someone around to talk to me and interact. And through that, I developed my speech language, which I think is a common thing in most children, to develop language and speech through interaction and imitation from others around you. Rennie, what was your experience like?
Well, my parents actually actively taught me a bit. So they would read to me from the age about 1.5. They did bedtime stories. They also would use phonics cards and things like that. And like you, I grew up in an extended family as well. So a lot of people was involved in my language acquisition. They would point like dog, they would or car, things like that, and say the word for me. Zareen, what about you?
Oh, well, for me, I think that I was actively taught in some sense because both my parents, they're teachers, so whether knowingly or unknowingly, they were teaching me to talk actively. Um, Mommy said that what she would do, she would point at things when they're talking, so to get me to know, okay, so you're talking about a pen, this is what a pen looks like, so that I have an idea as to what you're speaking about. They also label things around the house, and when you're talking, you would point at labels and so forth. So I think that it was active on my part.
Well, for me, it wasn't really that active because I guess because I grew up in an extended family and because, well, in most times it's your aunt or older brother or sister taking care of me, it would have just been like conversations, indirect or direct. And at some point in time, I would have began well, realizing, okay, this is pa, this is ma, this, I guess in some ways I just, well, picked up language naturally.
Right. So
Something
was
that was
that
interesting with my well, what I learned from my mom was that um when I was at the age of 1, I was speaking supposedly normally, saying well small words and proto words, and then at like 14 months I began well, I stopped speaking and I began murmuring and making muffled songs. But although they weren't well directly words that were coming out, because of the way I would have produced these muffling songs and the intonation that I would have used, well, persons around me were able to create meaning from what I was saying, and so I was still able to communicate. And also I would have been able to communicate through gestures and through, well, crying, through facial expression and stuff. So I guess in some ways I was a very, well, not so active baby, but yet still I was able to communicate as a child, as a, well, infant.
Okay, that's interesting. And do you think that there's any residual characteristics that stayed into your adulthood? Are you a big conversationalist now, or you still don't talk much?
Um, I kind of two-sided in a sense, but I would say I'm mostly quiet. I kind of prefer to listen more than I speak. So I would say that maybe that was, well, that was maybe a major, had a major impact on me and my development.
Okay, okay.
All
What
right.
about
So do
any of
you
y'all?
go
Go ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
Any of y'all had any songs that you couldn't say? Because I know that a common sound for children is usually R, and I always feel like my name starts with R. So I guess I would have had some hybrid version of my name, probably Annie or something along that line. Anybody else couldn't say the R sound or any other sound?
yes, me. I had trouble with the R sound as well. My favorite food was roti and butter, according to my mommy and grandma. And I could not say roti, so I would say roti, butter. And we also had a dog named Rover, and I could not say Rover, so I would say Rover. Zareen, you had any similar experiences?
I want to say that that is funny, but then I would actually be laughing at myself because I had similar. um, I also had issue with E, the letter R, and the letter Z as well. Interestingly enough, my name begins with a Z, so whenever they would ask my name, I would say that my name is Dawil, I'm not Zari. Um, I also had issues with the letter F. So mommy said that whenever I am talking about anything that begins with F, so she would ask me, okay, what are these called? What are these things called? And I would say wingers and not fingers. What are you doing? I'm eating wood when I'm trying to say food. Um, I had an obsession with fish. Interestingly enough, I could not even say the word fish. So she would say, oh, what is this? It's a wish, and things like that. She said oftentimes they would tease me. So anything that they can think of beginning with F, they would tell me to say the word and just have a laugh about this.
Yeah, I think at that age it is really cute, but eventually most children grow out of it, which
Right.
was the case for me. And I'm assuming you as well.
Yeah, same here.
Right.
Something with me that I'd like to mention is that a lot of persons in my family, they stammer a lot, and well, I guess a lot of what I heard would have been stammered or broken words. So, but in no way do I see this affecting me now. So I don't really know how, as a child, I was able to figure out how to speak and not stammer, or how I would have perceived that as a child. But there's something that came to me that I think I should have mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool though.
Yeah, guys, I just remembering an interesting story that my mom was telling me as well. It's about my grandmother. We call her Momika. So growing up, I would hear my aunties and my uncles calling her mommy. But mommy was saying to me that I am aware that she is not my mommy. So at first it was quite confusing to me. But I also knew that her name was Rebecca because I would hear other persons referring to her as Rebecca or even Becca. And I guess somewhere in my tiny brain, I'm telling myself, okay, this is a mommy. This is a mommy Rebecca. Hey. And I tried to say the word mommy Rebecca, but I could not make it. So I ended up saying Momica. And even up to this day, today, how much years later, everybody within my extended family still refers to my grandmother as Momica.
Yeah. I actually have a kind of similar story to that as well. When I was around 2 years old, I have an aunt and she has children, and I used to spend a lot of time with them. And obviously they were much older than me, and they would call their mom. But I, being 2 years old, would call my mom mama. And so one day I started calling my cousin's mom, which is my aunt, mom. And they were looking at me like, who is she talking to? But they know I was referring to my aunt because I call my mom mama. And my aunt would respond and she would interact with me and come when I called mom. And so no one ever really corrected me. And at that age of 2 years old, I obviously don't know that mom is specific to your biological mom, I guess, the one who gave birth to you. So in my mind, I guess that was like, I saw it as her name then, I guess. And so I started calling her mom. And even now, I still call her mom, obviously knowing that she's not my biological mom, but more of a mom figure. So, yeah, I think that was really interesting.
It is. Something I also noticed with my smaller brother is that he called, well, our older sister, he called her daddy when he was like a year, and he grew up like even when he reached like 7 years, he also keep referring to us daddy, and I guess in some ways she was kind of like kind of, I wouldn't want to use his father figure, but she was like a strong influence in that she was always there. She was always taking care of him. So I don't know if he made that connection, but yeah. So that is something I noticed.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. And I think hearing the variations of everyone's story and the difference and similarities in the language development of each one of us was really eye-opening. And I think that's all the time we have for now. But this was fun and interesting. So thank you all. And bye.